Welcome to Crushed Husband. Please like the video and subscribe. Let's begin. When I walked through the door, all I wanted was a normal night with Ellie. No emails, no client calls, no hotel lobby dinners in cities I couldn't even remember the names of. Just my wife, the couch, and maybe a bad movie we'd half watch while falling asleep together. I dropped my suitcase in the hallway and called out, "Ellie, I'm home." No answer. That wasn't unusual. She probably hadn't heard me over the shower, or maybe she was still unpacking. She'd gone to her college friend's wedding out in Phoenix while I was closing out a 2-week business trip in Chicago. I figured we'd both be wiped. I just wanted to be in the same room again. Quiet. Simple. Ellie came in a few minutes later through the front door, her duffel bag slung over her shoulder and a plastic grocery sack in the other hand. Her hair was pulled into a bun, wet like she'd just showered somewhere else. She was wearing one of those loose cotton sundresses she always said was comfortable but not cute, and she looked exhausted, not just tired, drained. "Hey," I said, stepping forward. "Welcome home." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Hey, you beat me back." I moved in to hug her, but she stiffened. Not dramatically, just a pause, enough that I noticed. She let me wrap my arms around her, but she didn't really hug back. Her skin smelled like hotel soap, too strong, like she'd scrubbed too hard. "You okay?" I asked. "Yeah, just dead," she said, slipping off her shoes. "Flight was delayed. I think I'm still vibrating. You want me to order food? Number? I just picked up some soup or something. I'm not really hungry." She walked past me, her shoulders tight, and disappeared into the bathroom without another word. The door shut. Water started running. For a second, I just stood there, my hand still half in the air from where I was going to offer to carry her bag. Ellie was a talker. She never shut up about the dumbest things. Store clerks, podcast episodes, people she only knew from Instagram. But tonight, she barely looked at me. She moved like someone visiting a stranger's house. Even her skin looked pink, like she'd spent too long scrubbing it under hot water. After the shower, she came out wrapped in her robe, muttered something about needing sleep, and went straight to bed. I waited for her to come back out, to say goodnight like she always did. She didn't. I ended up on the couch, the TV on mute, staring at nothing. And that's when the first wave of unease settled over me. Not panic, not yet, but something deeper. The kind of quiet that meant something was off. Something I couldn't see yet, but could feel. Something I knew wasn't going away. I woke up with a strange burning in my lower abdomen. Not pain exactly, just a raw, irritated kind of sting. At first I blamed the hotel food from the week before. Maybe something I picked up from a bar stool or gym towel. But by lunch, it was worse. Uncomfortable. It didn't feel like something that would just pass. I stared at the urgent care sign for a long time before walking in. The doctor was brisk, polite. I didn't go into detail, just told him the symptoms. He asked if I'd been sexually active with anyone new. "No," I said, "just my wife." He raised an eyebrow slightly but didn't say anything. "We'll run some tests just to be safe." I nodded, trying not to feel defensive. I was tired, dehydrated, and had been traveling for 14 days. Maybe it was just irritation, I told myself. A reaction to something. Airline seat grime, a new detergent from the hotel. By the time I got home, Ellie was sitting at the kitchen table scrolling on her phone. She looked up when I walked in and gave me a faint smile. That same unreadable distance was still there in her eyes. "Hey," she said, "feeling any better?" I blinked. "How'd you know I wasn't feeling well?" She looked surprised. "You said something last night, didn't you? I thought I heard you say your stomach was weird." I hadn't said anything about it. "I'm just tired," I said quickly. "Probably something from the airport food court." She nodded, then stood. "I was going to make dinner tonight. Thought we could have a quiet one." I stared at her. Something about how normal she was trying to sound made my skin itch. "That'd be nice," I said, forcing a smile. Later that evening, while she sautéed vegetables in the pan, I sat on the bar stool watching her. She moved efficiently, but there was no rhythm to it. She wasn't humming like she usually did. She wasn't talking at all. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I stepped out into the hallway to answer. "Mr. Keller, this is Dr. Paris's office. We just got your lab results back." I felt my chest tighten. "Okay, you tested positive for chlamydia," the nurse said flatly. For a second, I couldn't speak. "There's a prescription waiting for you at the pharmacy," she continued. "Make sure your partner is tested and treated as well." I mumbled something that might have been, "Thank you," and hung up. I stood there, staring at my phone like it had betrayed me. I hadn't cheated. I hadn't even thought about it. And Ellie had gone to a wedding. For one weekend. What the hell happened? Back in the kitchen, she was setting 2 plates down, acting like nothing was wrong. "I might skip dinner," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm still not feeling right." She looked at me for a moment, then nodded. "Okay, I'll wrap yours up." I walked upstairs and shut the bedroom door behind me. I didn't confront her. I didn't scream or accuse. But the truth was already circling me like smoke, and I couldn't ignore it much longer. It was 4 days before I finally said something. 4 days of going through the motions, pretending I believed the stomach bug story, pretending I wasn't swallowing antibiotics every morning, while my wife moved around the house like everything was fine. But it wasn't fine, and every hour that passed made it worse. On Thursday evening, she was in the kitchen chopping carrots for a soup she wasn't even planning to eat. She hadn't touched a full meal since she got back. Just tea, crackers, fruit, like she was detoxing. I stood by the fridge watching her. "You need anything from the store?" she asked without looking up. "No," I said. Then, after a pause, "But I do need to talk to you." Her hand froze mid-chop. She looked up slowly, her eyes cautious. "What's up?" I stared at her for a moment, tried to remember the last time I'd felt completely sure about her, about us. "I tested positive for chlamydia," I said, keeping my voice as flat as I could. She blinked. "What?" "I went to urgent care Monday. I wasn't feeling right. They ran tests. The results came back. It's chlamydia." She stared at me, the knife still in her hand. You're sure?" "Pretty damn sure. Got the meds to prove it." Ellie set the knife down and leaned back against the counter. Her face was pale, but her voice was weirdly steady. "Well, I don't know what to say," she said. "Maybe it's dormant. You know, those things can live in your system for a while." I didn't move. "It doesn't work like that." "It might," she insisted, her arms crossing tightly. "I've heard that. Maybe it's from before we met. We've been married for 6 years. She looked away. "You didn't even ask if I was okay," I said. "You just went straight to denial." "I didn't cheat," she said quickly, but it sounded automatic, like she'd been rehearsing it in her head since Monday. "I swear." I took a slow breath. "Ellie, I know you were with someone. I know it happened during the wedding weekend." Her jaw clenched. "You're assuming that because I went away?" "I'm assuming that because the timeline lines up. Because you came home acting like a stranger. Because you scrubbed your skin raw before you even said hello to me. Because your body language hasn't been the same since you walked in that door." "I was tired," she snapped. "You've never been tired like this. Not like this." She didn't respond. Her mouth was pressed into a hard line, her eyes locked on the floor. The silence stretched. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't crying. But I could feel something unraveling in the air between us, something invisible and permanent. "I don't need you to lie to me," I said. "Not now. Just tell me the truth." But Ellie didn't say a word. She just stood there, arms folded, eyes wet, but not crying. And in that silence, I finally understood. She wasn't going to confess, not because she didn't do it, but because she still thought I might forgive her if she didn't. The next few days passed in a fog. We didn't talk about it again. Ellie acted like the conversation never happened, like I hadn't looked her in the eye and said the word chlamydia out loud in our kitchen. But I remembered every second of it, how she didn't argue, didn't cry, didn't ask me if I was okay. Just crossed her arms and waited for it to blow over. It didn't blow over. If anything, it got worse. I started noticing things I hadn't seen before, not because they weren't there, but because I wasn't looking closely enough. Her phone, for example, always face down on the counter now. She used to scroll through pictures and memes while we watched TV together. Now, she kept the screen hidden like it carried something contagious. One night while she was in the shower, I glanced at it. Just glanced. Notifications were turned off. Every app was minimized. Her lock screen used to be a picture of us at the lake. Now it was some abstract art thing. No messages, no missed calls. It was spotless in a way that made me suspicious. Then there was the receipt. I found it while tossing out trash from the kitchen, crumpled in the bottom of a paper bag. a receipt from a boutique lingerie shop in Phoenix. I'd never heard of it, but I looked it up. Expensive stuff. She hadn't mentioned buying anything like that. No new tags, no boxes, nothing in our drawers. So, where did it go? And why would she buy lingerie for a trip she said was just dancing, drinks, and a hotel buffet with the girls? I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I started tracing the weekend backward. Ellie had flown out Thursday night. The wedding was Saturday. She'd told me the bride booked 2 suites, one for her and her friends, the other for a few cousins. I asked for pictures when she came back. She said she didn't take any, that she forgot her charger and her phone was dead half the time. But that didn't add up either. She posted a boomerang of the hotel lobby bar on her story that Friday night. Another of her champagne glass clinking with someone else's. Then nothing. Not a single photo from the actual wedding. No selfies, no group pics, not even a shot of the dress. That wasn't like Ellie. She documented everything. Outfits, food, sunsets, even receipts for takeout. But this trip, it disappeared. I asked her about it casually one morning over coffee. Did anyone post pictures from the wedding? Haven't seen anything. She shrugged. I guess people were just living in the moment. Not even one? I mean, probably on Facebook or whatever. I haven't checked. It was a lie. I could feel it. The way she didn't look up from her cup. The way her hand trembled slightly when she reached for her phone. Something happened during that weekend. Something she wasn't ready to admit. But her silence said more than words ever could. The over-clean skin, the erased digital trail, the missing lingerie, the distracted glances, the guilt disguised as tiredness. I replayed it all at night, lying in bed beside her while she slept. And I started to piece it together. She cheated. It happened during the wedding weekend, and she'd been hiding the truth since the second she walked back through that door. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon when I finally told her to get tested. We were sitting in the living room, the TV playing some cooking show neither of us was watching. Ellie had a blanket pulled over her legs, her knees tucked close to her chest like she was trying to disappear into the couch. I looked over at her and said, "You should make an appointment." She didn't pretend not to know what I meant. "For what?" "You know what for." She stared straight ahead, her jaw tensing. "You're still thinking about that?" "I'm still living with it." Silence. "I'm not sick," she muttered. "You don't know that," I said. "And even if you're not, I deserve to know. We both do." She didn't answer right away, just shifted the blanket higher over her legs, like it could shield her from me. After a long pause, she said, "I'll call tomorrow." That was all she said, but something shifted in her face, a kind of slow collapse. I recognized it. It was the look people get when they realize they've run out of ways to lie to themselves. She stood up a minute later and walked out of the room. That night, while she was brushing her teeth, I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the floor. When she came back in, I said quietly, "I need to know what happened." She froze in the doorway. "I already told you." "No," I said. "You didn't. You avoided it. You hoped I'd drop it, but I won't." She stood there for a long time. Then she walked slowly to her side of the bed and sat down without looking at me. "Do you really want to know?" she asked. "Yes." She let out a shaky breath. "It was one night, at the wedding, after the reception. We were drinking. A lot." I didn't move. "It was this guy, Brendan. He was a friend of the groom's. I didn't know him before. We talked at the bar. He made me laugh. He told me I was beautiful." Her voice cracked on that last word, but she swallowed it quickly. "We went back to his room." She didn't cry. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She just said it like it was a fact, like reading out loud something she never wanted to write. "And that's it?" I asked, my voice hoarse. "Yes." "You slept with a stranger at your friend's wedding and gave me an STI. I didn't mean for it to happen." "You let it happen." "I was drunk." "That's not an excuse." "I know." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "I know." There was a long silence between us, heavy, awful, like the air in the room had thickened and slowed. "I didn't want to hurt you," she whispered. "But you did." She looked down at her lap. "It didn't mean anything. That doesn't make it better. I just—" She stopped, like the words wouldn't come. I stood up slowly, walked to the door, and turned back to face her. "I don't care what you were feeling. I don't care if you were drunk or confused or lonely, or trying to prove something to yourself. You made a choice. Ellie's lip trembled, but still no tears came. "There's no excuse for what you did," I said. And then I left the room. Because if I stayed 1 second longer, I would have screamed, or broken something, or said something I couldn't take back. And the only thing I wanted now was distance from her lies. I contacted a divorce attorney the following morning. I didn't tell Ellie. I didn't need a dramatic scene or some big tearful showdown. I needed clarity, answers, a plan. I sat across from a woman named Claire Jennings in a corner office downtown while she outlined everything I would need: financial records, proof of infidelity, a strategy for clean separation. "Do you want to pursue fault-based grounds?" she asked. "Yes," I said without hesitation. "I want this on the record." She nodded and slid a document across the table. "Then we'll need corroboration, medical records, maybe evidence of her affair." "I'm working on that," I said. Because I was. That same afternoon, I hired a private investigator. His name was Lawson. He looked like a guy who belonged in a baseball cap behind a newspaper, but he had credentials and came highly recommended. I gave him everything I knew: Brendan's first name, the hotel, the wedding weekend, the small slivers of the story Ellie had let slip. Lawson nodded and said, "Give me 4 days." He didn't need that long. 2 days later, he emailed me a full report. Brendan H., groomsman, married. Divorced 6 months ago. Known for a string of messy flings. My stomach turned as I read the details. There were screenshots too, pictures of Ellie and Brendan laughing at the hotel bar, blurry but clear enough. And then, the most damning part. Lawson had spoken to someone who worked at the hotel. She was with that guy, the hotel clerk told him. They went up together around midnight, room 812. There it was, everything I needed. I sat in my office with that report in my hand, and for the first time in weeks, I felt something close to peace. It wasn't satisfaction. It wasn't revenge. It was just clarity. Like someone had cleaned the fog off a windshield I didn't know was dirty. This happened. It wasn't a misunderstanding or a lapse in judgment. It wasn't about being tired or tipsy or sad. It was a decision Ellie made, to lie, to hide it, to let me suffer while she protected her image. That night, I sat across from her at the dinner table. She made pasta, barely touched it. I did. I ate every bite in silence while she watched me like I was a stranger. She asked, "Are we okay?" I said, "No." She nodded like she already knew. The next morning, I filed the divorce paperwork. I instructed Claire to freeze the joint accounts and start separating assets. She assured me we had enough documentation to make my case strong. Between the medical records, the affair, and the private investigator's findings, there was no room left for doubt. I wasn't doing this to punish her. I was doing this because I couldn't live in the same house with someone who looked me in the eye and lied for days, while I was getting treated for an infection she gave me. I had loved Ellie, but whatever we had died, the moment she chose a stranger over our marriage, I was just making it official. The hearing was short, quieter than I expected. No tears, no raised voices. Just a judge in a crisp black robe reading from a manila folder while Ellie sat to my left, hands folded in her lap like a nervous student waiting to be called on. Claire had prepared everything. Every document was in order. The judge asked a few standard questions: dates, confirmations, signatures. When he asked Ellie if she agreed to the terms, she didn't even flinch, just nodded and said, "Yes, Your Honor," in a voice so soft I barely heard it. That was it. 20 minutes, maybe less. "Divorce is granted," he said, tapping his gavel once. Ellie glanced over at me. I didn't meet her eyes. Afterward, Claire and I walked out together into the hallway. Ellie stayed behind, still seated, staring at the floor like she expected someone to come stop it. Like it wasn't real, but it was. Outside the courthouse, the sky was gray, the kind of dull overcast that made the whole world feel like it was on pause. Claire shook my hand and said, "You did the right thing." I nodded. "Thanks for everything?" She hesitated. "You okay?" I didn't answer right away. "I think I will be." The next day, Ellie was served the custody decision at her office. I didn't want to be cruel. I didn't even want to make it public. But Claire insisted it was cleaner that way. Official service, documented reception. I had filed for full custody of Ava, and based on the timeline of the STI, the affair, and Ellie's failure to disclose any of it, the court agreed. Ava was only 4, too young to understand what was happening, but old enough to ask questions when the bedroom across the hall stayed empty for a few nights in a row. "Is Mommy coming back?" "Not tonight, sweetheart." That part was the hardest, not the court, not the logistics. Just looking into my daughter's eyes and trying to make her feel safe when her world had shifted without warning. Ellie was granted limited visitation, supervised for now. The judge said we'd revisit it in 6 months, depending on behavior and compliance with a medical follow-up. She didn't fight it. She didn't say a word. When the papers were dropped on her desk, she signed them the same day. I got a call from Claire later that afternoon. She didn't push back, she said. She accepted all the terms. Even custody? Even custody. I hung up and stared out the window of my office for a long time. This was what she had chosen. She had thrown everything away for a night in a hotel room with someone whose name she barely knew. And now there was nothing left to fight for. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel angry anymore either. Just empty. But in that emptiness, there was something else, something calm. Like the ground had finally stopped shaking beneath me, like the storm had passed. This was real now. I had custody, I had answers, and I had distance from the person who broke me. It wasn't the ending I wanted, but it was the one I needed. The first week without Ellie in the house felt like walking through a museum of our old life. Her slippers by the bedroom door, a scarf still hanging on the hook by the stairs, dried shampoo bottles in the shower that smelled like someone I didn't know anymore. I kept telling myself I'd clean it all up, but I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I threw myself into Ava's routine. Preschool drop-offs, lunches with the crusts cut off, bedtime stories where I barely got through the pages because she kept asking why the dragon was lonely or if the knight had a mom. I answered the best I could. She didn't ask much about Ellie, just once on a Wednesday night while we were brushing our teeth side by side. "Does Mommy live in a different house now?" "Yeah, sweetie," I said gently. "She has her own place now." "Can I visit her?" "Sometimes, yeah. Not too much right now, but soon." She nodded like that made perfect sense and went back to making foam mustaches in the mirror. That was the thing about kids. They bounce back. They adapt. And I realized if I wanted Ava to feel safe, I had to show her what that looked like. So I started small. I repainted the living room a soft gray, took down the framed photos of fake vacations and forced smiles, put up new ones, just me and Ava at the zoo, at the park, eating ice cream in clothes that didn't match. Real stuff. I took her to the farmer's market every Saturday. We picked out flowers for the kitchen table, pink ones always. She said pink made the pancakes taste better. And slowly, I started feeling like myself again. Not the man who had been cheated on, not the guy who sat on the couch waiting for a confession that never came. Just Thomas, a dad, someone who got up every day and tried to do better. Ellie texted every now and then, not about us, just little check-ins about Ava. Did she like the book I sent? Can I call her on Sunday? I miss her. I kept my replies short, civil, factual. She liked it. You can call after dinner. She's doing fine. Because she was. We both were. There were hard moments, sure. Nights where Ava would crawl into bed with me and fall asleep wrapped around my arm. Mornings where the silence in the kitchen felt too loud. But even that started to feel normal. I stopped thinking about Brendan. I stopped imagining that night in the hotel. I stopped replaying what I could have done differently. None of it mattered now. What mattered was the little girl who danced in the hallway in mismatched socks, who asked if dragons could be moms too, who hugged me tighter every day like she knew I needed it, even if I never said a word. Ellie had shattered something in me, but Ava helped put it back together. Not the same way, not exactly whole, but solid, real, mine. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't living in the past anymore. I was building something new, and this time, it was just for us. It started with a voicemail I almost deleted. "Hi, this is Lauren, Brendan's wife. Well, ex-wife, I guess. I got your number through mutual contacts. I hope that's okay. I think we should talk." I stared at my phone for a long time after that. The name didn't fully register at first. Then it hit me. Brendan's wife. The same Brendan who slept with Ellie. The same Brendan who helped blow up my life. I had no idea what she wanted. I waited a day before calling her back. She answered on the first ring. "Thomas?" "Yeah," I said. Lauren, right? She exhaled like she'd been holding her breath. Thank you for calling. We agreed to meet at a coffee shop in town. Public place. Neutral. I didn't know what I was walking into, and honestly, I wasn't sure I wanted to. She showed up in jeans and a navy coat, her hair tied back, no makeup. She looked tired, but calm. I appreciate you coming, she said, settling into the chair across from me. I know this is weird. I shrugged. Weirder things have happened. She gave a half smile. Fair enough. We talked for over an hour. At first, just basics. She told me how she found out. Messages on his laptop, a photo buried in a deleted folder. She didn't get details, but she didn't need to. Once I knew it happened during the wedding weekend, she said, I did some digging. Eventually, I found out about Ellie. I nodded slowly. It wasn't just a one-time mistake for me. It wrecked everything. Same here, she said. I kicked him out, filed the papers 2 weeks later. There was a pause. Then she said something I didn't expect. I'm not looking to blame Ellie or you. I don't know. I guess I wanted to talk to someone who gets it. And strangely, I did. Not because we shared some tragic bond, but because she was the only other person who knew exactly what that weekend meant, what it broke. I'm sorry he did that to you, I said quietly. I'm sorry she did it to you, she replied. We sipped coffee, swapped stories, not to compare pain, but to understand it. Lauren told me about the way Brendan had always been charming, the kind of guy who could talk himself out of anything. She said she should have seen it coming. I told her I thought Ellie would eventually tell me the truth. She didn't, though, Lauren said. No, I said, she didn't. Before we left, she pulled a business card from her bag and handed it to me. If you ever need someone to talk to, or just someone who won't say, you should move on, I'm around. I looked at the card and nodded. Thanks, you too. We left it at that. No promises, no lingering. Just a quiet understanding between two people who had their lives cracked open by the same lie. And somehow, in all of that, it helped. Not to heal everything, but to know I wasn't alone. That sometimes, even in the wreckage, you find someone else who's learning how to stand again.